Hi, this is Sarah Richer with Purdue Extension, Lawrence County. Welcome to Empower Me to Be Clutter Free. Joining me today is Sonia Mitchell, Health and Human Sciences Extension Educator in Washington County. Clutter. Clutter can be defined as a disordered collection. It's anything that impedes movement and reduces your effectiveness. You can probably recognize clutter when you see it. Do you ever find yourself noticing someone else's clutter before your own? In the chat box, share with us which is the clutter you tend to recognize first. Yours or others? All right, so let's take the clutter quiz. So here are a few questions just to ask yourself to come to the realization whether or not you have clutter, which, since you're joining this WebEx, more than likely you may feel like you have clutter in your life. But here are some easy questions to ask yourself. Do your friends think you're disorganized? You feel like you don't have time to get organized? Are you spending a lot of time looking for things? Is your mail piling up? Do you find yourself saving things you might need later? Are you missing time for yourself? Do you feel guilty about throwing things away? Are you embarrassed if someone visits unexpectedly? Which you don't have to answer these out loud, but just thinking to yourself, this is one way to recognize if you may have some clutter you would like to work through. If I have clutter, does that mean I have a problem? Well, no, because clutter is a normal, natural part of our lives. The picture shown on the screen is what we would consider a normal amount of clutter. You might have a problem if your entrances, exits, doorways, and/or any stairs are blocked. There is one major appliance or heating, cooling device that has not worked for 6 months or longer that you've kept. You have visible clutter outdoors, including items that are normally stored inside, such as televisions and sofas. There is structural damage to your home. You have mold, mildew, bug or critter infestations. If you feel this might be you and you're unsure how to proceed, feel free to reach out to Sonia or myself, and we can hopefully provide you with some additional resources to get you started on your clutter free journey. So, 10 reasons to declutter your home. It's less stress, it allows for more space and peace. It's easier to find things. It increases your productivity and efficiency. It's easier to look after. You're better prepared for those visitors that are unexpected. You'll spend less money in the long run. It encourages gratitude. You feel like you have more time and energy for other things. Today, we will be discussing the negative effects of clutter, common barriers we experience, strategies to work towards reducing our clutter, and we will create an action plan to tackle our clutter. So I'm going to hand it over to Sonia.
So in financial, it's expensive to replace things that you can't find, and it's just duplicate spending, which is just waste that we could all use to avoid. And, and I don't know, some people also not wanting to let go of things end up getting a storage unit, and we can spend a lot of money into hanging on things. Like you might have a nice sofa and you're like, oh, I don't want to get rid of it. But by the time you pay those storage fees, you could have bought that sofa over one or more times. So we really have to kind of shift our thinking and about how we manage our things in our lives. Another big negative effect when we get clutter, I'm sure many of you have different systems of how you manage your mail and your bills that come in, but sometimes if we don't put them away or we let them pile up, then we end up letting them be late, and those late fees are killer. They are very expensive. So, even staying on top of things like your mail and your bills that come into your home. And also with with clutter, that can be a safety hazard because you can, trip over it. You could have falls. And if you've got a lot of stuff on your coffee table and the kids come in and want to set down something they're eating or drinking, it spills over and then you've got, a mess. So getting kind of organized will kind of help us avoid a lot of negative effects. And all of these are very frustrating. I can't say that I've never been late on a bill because I have, and man, does that make me upset with myself because that's just typically, a $35 or more, depending, late fee just because you forgot about it, weren't organized and paying attention to those deadlines. So does anybody identify with any of these things I'm saying about these negative effects of clutter? Have you been frustrated about not being able to find things or having to spend money to duplicate those things because you couldn't find them? Or just because you just forgot something, having to have an expense, such as like $35 just out the window, just because you forgot? All right. I think these are pretty common. And as we said, we all have clutter and it's an ongoing process to get rid of it and to stay on top of it. And it does make you feel anxious. Like I say, I get upset. So that's kind of been a driving force for me to stay on top of things because I know how much it upsets me when I can't find it. And then I just feel like, many of you, I'm sure, are managing more than one thing. Some of you mentioned you had children. Maybe you're working, you're trying to keep a home. Maybe you have pets. It just feels overwhelming and your clutter gets on top of you and you just feel like it's overwhelming. You can kind of shut down. And it creates family conflicts. People get irritated because they can't find their things, or maybe you moved it because you needed to use the space for something. So there's an emotional toll there as well. So there's even more. We could probably go on, but I think you all are identifying with how this can easily creep into our lives. So as we look at some common barriers, because like I said, we all have clutter, so we probably all have different reasons of why we feel like our clutter gets a little ahead of us. So I'd like to hear from you all, like what do you feel is holding you back from getting rid of the stuff that's piled up on your counters, or that's, being shoved in the garage, or sitting on the floor waiting to be put away? What do you think gets in your way? Can you share that in the chat box? Maybe you're just your number one reason that you think is the biggest hurdle for you. Oh, somebody kind of summed it up there. I like that one word, indecision. A lot of us have kept things because, well, I might need it, or I can't let it go. Maybe I have some sentiment attached to the object, and maybe it's not beneficial to me. Having too many irons in the fire, absolutely. Everybody seems to have a busy life, multiple things going on. And you feel guilty about it, sure. Sure, we're going to talk about that. One way to kind of let go of things that kind of make us feel guilty, we can look at, well, it depends on our reasoning. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later on too. Time, absolutely. And when we get it piled up, we look at it and we know it's going to take us a lot of time to get through it and sort it out. And we're going to talk about that. All these are going to come through in our action plan as well. And they are very good reasons, but I can tell that with the reasons that you are talking, we need to kind of shift our thinking about how we approach our clutter and allow ourselves to think differently so we can let go, that we don't have the guilt and that we're not feeling overwhelmed. And these are things that we can address little by little, and you'll learn these through some of the strategies we're going to talk about today. So we'll shift our thinking and look at maybe developing thinking that's more stress-free and organized. For example, this was one that one of you already said, I might need it someday. So let's start thinking about that. You got to be honest with yourself. Would you buy more, and will you buy more if you wanted to avoid looking for it? So we've got to think about these things. So could you find it if you wanted it? Do you have a place for it? That can be a big issue. So sometimes we think things, well, it still has value. I don't want to get rid of it. It still has value. but does it have value to you? And what is the cost of that? You might say, well, I paid X amount of dollars for this. I don't really want to give it up. I might need it, but what is the cost of your hanging on to it? And how much better would you feel if you let it go? And then if you did in the future need that item, would it be something that you could easily go out and purchase? Can you donate that item so that when you let it go, you're kind of like paying it forward? Maybe today you can't enjoy it. It no longer serves a purpose for you, but maybe if you donate it or give it to someone who can use it, you'll feel better about letting it go because now it's given somebody else some joy. That's an important thing to remember. So we kind of, with our organized thinking, we say, I will only surround myself with what I need and will use today. And you're going to save time and money by realizing I don't have it and need to purchase it or borrow it. So has anybody been able to part with any things, given some of that thought to it? Like, what is the cost of my hanging on to it? It's crowding my home. It's not being used. Have you found ways that you can let go of it without maybe feeling guilty or realizing that there is a cost to hanging on to stuff that you might need someday? Yeah, and we have to acknowledge too that sometimes when we hang on to things we're not using, they deteriorate just from being stored and from not being used. So then it ends up that nobody gets to enjoy it when that someday might come. All right. Let's look at the next slide. One of the other reasons that people hang on to things, which is I'm saving it for the kids. I'm willing to bet that most of us have heard that at some point in our lives and with our family. Yes, we think I'm saving it for the kids. But again, we're going to have to be honest with ourselves and think about, will they want it? Like maybe you collect glass unicorns. Do you have a niece or nephew or someone in your family who treasures your collection as much as you do, who also collects glass unicorns? And it's something that you really love, but you got to think about, are the kids really going to want it? And maybe we need to have conversations with our family about things that they might like to have of ours. And then you got to kind of wonder too, will we be just contributing to something that they have to manage, more things that they'll have to work on not letting clutter their home? And is it something that they probably already have and they don't need? So yeah, I would say ask them, if they really want it, is this something you'd like to have? And then if you're not using it, love the idea of give it to them now if you can. So if you don't need it and they don't want it, that's something that you can part with. And then you want to limit the number of items you give them, because I have to tell friends and family when I give them things, if you don't want this, please don't take it. I will donate it, because I don't want them to take objects that will also clutter their home. All right. And on the next slide, another barrier to getting rid of things is it's old and valuable. And I don't know about you all, but my husband and I, sometimes we love to watch the Antique Roadshow, right? And you see these people that buy these things at garage sales and they get on there and they give them this price and you're like, oh, that's amazing. But sometimes you have to think, okay, but who's going to buy it for that? Do you have a buyer for it? How much time and energy would it take for you to find a buyer for certain items? And then sometimes, yes, they're old, but how valuable is it? Can you look, like say at eBay, can you do some research and find out actually what is a monetary value, and then assess whether it's worth it for it to be in your life and take up your space? So an organized person would think, if there's going to be a lot of effort for you to collect a small amount of money, maybe it's not worth it. And there's also that idea that, let it go and donate it to charity or take the tax deduction, or if you know someone who appreciates it, then you can part with it that way. All right, and then here's the next barrier. which is also hard, makes it hard for us to part with things. It's perfectly good. It's still useful. It still has some use in it. I can't just toss it out. But I want you to think about this in terms, but are you using it? It's only useful if you're using it. And will you realistically use it? When things get outdated, even if they're not broken, if you're not using it, it no longer has that value to you. And then what is the cost of having this item in your home? Is there something you'd rather have in that space? Is it space that you would just free up? It's a nice feeling sometimes to just have additional space in our home. And then is it possible that you can donate it to someone else? Maybe you've got the latest, greatest, and new improved stereo system, but somebody else might appreciate at least having this particular one. And that's a great way to kind of let go of things when you think somebody else might be able to use it and take care of it. And I'm sure those of you with children can identify with this. I'm too busy. And when you have multiple family members and everybody's very busy, it's really easy to let clutter get ahead of you. If you're chasing kids around, running out the door, they're coming back and forth to school. Some of the kids are involved in sport. There's always gear around, water bottles. If you've got babies, you've got tons of gear. So sometimes it appears like, we've got too much going on. I'm just too busy. But we have to stop and think. You think you're too busy at that moment, but guess how much time it costs you later when you do have to address it, because eventually you will. And then there will be things that, again, you will look for, you can't find, and you end up buying it again, becoming frustrated because you can't find it. So with an organized thinking, you think the way is to stay on top of it, that remember, it will save you time in the long run, and it will make your day run much more smoothly and be a lot less stress-free and take up a lot less of your time, which if you're too busy already, the last thing you need is additional time. All right. And the next common barriers, I don't know where to put it. Okay, so now we have to assess the things we already have in our lives, and we want the things in our lives to be meaningful, purposeful, and bring us joy. So if you have an item and you think, I don't know where to put it, then we need to really evaluate, does this item deserve a space in our life? And if it's something that you really need and you want to use, you're going to have to create a space, and you might need to evaluate other tools or other items you have in your home to compare, to say that which one is more beneficial to be in your home. I know the example here, it's showing an appliance. Sometimes we buy an appliance and it has multiple functions, but takes the place of maybe another appliance we have. So being aware that perhaps we need to part with one so we have the space for the one that we just purchased and really want to use. And I know many of you have probably heard this, as I did from my own mother, put things back in their place when you're done using them. It's a classic, but it's absolutely true. That is the best way. We think we don't have time. We want to run on to the next thing or run out the door. But if we just can do just that, just pause for a moment and put it back in the space that you created, you're gonna save yourself time. I know we often say, no, I don't have time. I had to run. I didn't have time to put that away. But time is limited. And you can either spend, a short amount of time taking care of it now, or you can spend 2 to 3 or more time later trying to figure out where you left it, where it is, and then end up putting it back where it belongs. So it's a simple phrase, but it really applies when we want to work on our decluttering. Another important thing to remember about clutter is our minds are connected to matter. Those things in your life do have an effect on you. And it's often negative emotionality when it becomes too messy and too cluttered. So Sarah mentioned like using this course to kind of help you get motivated and develop some strategies for maybe decluttering your personal life or your professional life. So many of you, if you're aware of cluttering, and I hope if nothing else from this course that you become more mindful about clutter, that you realize its impact on you. So when you get ready, you know, if you go into an office and your desk is messy and you can't find your papers and you're having to shuffle, you know, that just creates a negative emotionality. It's like your mind is cluttered just like your desk is. And I know for me, when I go in the kitchen and I want to cook, if things are all in disarray there, it's like I can't even begin until I have things organized and cleared, so I can also have a clear mind to begin the process of cooking. So this requires us to take action though. So we want to clear our space and clear our minds so we're organized, stress-free, and able to manage our daily lives better.
All right. So now we can recognize some of those barriers. So it's time to create an action plan. So it's time for change. So first, I want you to envision how you want this space to look. So think of one area in your home that you would like to declutter. What would you like that to look like eventually? Think about the functionality of the space. What do you need from this particular area of your home? Make some rules for yourself. So it's so important to schedule a time to start. You may even want to pull out your calendar and schedule days and times and include other family members to help you on this journey. So we have some small action steps for you. First, I had already mentioned, schedule a time. Gather all your supplies in advance. Start small with one project or area. So don't set out one day to clean out the entire upstairs of your home. Start with, one small closet or one section of your room, whatever that small area is that you know you can accomplish in the time frame that you've assigned yourself. Um, like I said, large spaces need to be broken down into small pieces. And then celebrate your successes. So if you're cleaning something out as a family, celebrate as a family. I recommend this box technique that's shown in the picture at the top. One box that's missing that I would always add in is a decide later box. So you have your keep box, you have a recycle box, donate or sell, trash, and then also a decide later. So decide later gives you the opportunity to just put something aside and come back to that. So at the end of the day, you need to go through your decide later box and place it into one of the other 4 boxes, but that gives you the time to think. So some simple guidelines to go by as you're decluttering. So you need to make your own guidelines, but here's just a few examples of things that you can ask yourself. The first is it broken? Does it work properly? Is this a duplicate? Do I have more than one of these? If I have 10 spatulas, I probably don't need to keep all 10 spatulas. That's an item that a local donation center would be happy to take. Is this item current? Is this something that matches my current decor, style? Does it make me happy? Does it really fit into my current lifestyle? Trade. Is this something that can be traded with something new? Do I have multiples of this item? So like Sonia mentioned about the stereo system. If I have one current stereo system that can be traded out and I no longer need my old one, then send that old one off or sell it. Decorative. If it's decorative, is it something that's still in use? Is it still in style? Replaceable. If this item was taken away, maybe by a natural disaster or some sort of means of that, or stolen, would I even realize it's gone? Is it replaceable? Would I miss it? Last use. When is the last time that I used this item? Locate. Can I find it when I want to use it? Asset. Is it valuable? Do you have a way to turn it into cash if needed? Obligation. Are you keeping it out of obligation because you feel like you have to have this item because it belonged to maybe someone, previous loved one? Cost. How much is the item costing you to store? So think of this in terms of like what Sonia mentioned about having a storage unit. If I have a sofa and that's the only thing I have stored in there, or even if I have a couple of items, the cost of a storage unit will eventually surpass what I had spent originally on my sofa or whatever items I have in there. So why is it so hard for some of us? Emotional attachment doesn't just occur between humans. We develop positive and or sentimental feelings really about certain physical items, also because they are related to special or unique memories. We can all, I'm sure, identify with having items that are sentimental to us, so things that we value. Um, a lot of times these may be connected to a specific person. Maybe it's this was my parents' mixing bowl when they got married, or they received this as a wedding gift. It could be related to our children. So this was little Johnny's baseball trophy from second grade, so I feel like I need to keep it. It could be related to a death in the family or a first in the family, or even something related to a last. I like to give a personal example on this one on a funny note. So we had a family member recently pass, and as we were going through her home, she was a saver. And this is when I was like, okay, I really need to think about everything that I save as well. As we went through her home, she had kept over the years everyone's dentures. So, if you all have a good laugh for the day, keep in mind that what you're keeping and saving, if someone's going to go through those things one day, make sure they have true value. And it's not just a sentimental piece that you're keeping because it's taking up drawer space and it belonged to someone that you love. Hopefully, there's other items that are more meaningful to you that you can keep and then one day pass on. All right, so starting small and building momentum. Just focus on getting started. As we said, start with that small space. Allow, 2 hours, an hour in time, not so long that you're going to feel overwhelmed by the process. Set a timer and stick to the timer. So don't feel like you have to spend your entire Saturday cleaning. Really focus on one area for that short period of time. Sort into the boxes that we mentioned, and when the timer dings, you're done for the day. So put things away as you can, and then be prepared to set another date on your calendar to where you can start again. I would recommend for the small space, starting with like a closet, maybe it's a cabinet you've been wanting to go through. I know we all have the Midwest drunk drawer or junk drawer. There we go. In our current home, we have probably two or three that need to be gone through. So this isn't just something that a few of us struggle with. We all struggle with needing to build up that momentum and just start small. And you'll really feel joy build up from feeling like you're becoming organized and you're getting a better handle on your space. Like I said, when that timer dings, put things in the trash that need to go in the trash, get the donate pile in the box, take it to the thrift store at that moment. So it's not lingering in, your garage or your car. Put things away that need to be relocated. Place items that belong in the space back in that space. All right, so now we are going to challenge all of you. So between now and the next time we meet, we want you to challenge you we want to challenge you to think about where you're going to start. Why is this important to you, and how you can use these action steps to help you gain and work towards gaining better control over your clutter. And then finally, how are you going to celebrate? So if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat box again where you're wanting to start, why you want to start, and then how you're going to celebrate when you're done. So I'll give you a few moments to go through that.
Sarah, I know one thing that's also helpful is to get a buddy to start doing some of this with. Sometimes just having someone to chat with you while you're going through the sorting is very helpful. I know with a friend of mine, we had what we called a fashion show when we went through her closet to kind of
That
help
sounds like
tear down some of
fun.
the clothes. Yeah, well, it was for us. It made it a lot less painful.
Yes, having a friend or a family member, when I'm decluttering and working through that junk drawer, I'll have music going on. I don't turn the TV on, and that's because I am easily distracted, but I can handle some holiday music this time of year, so I'll have that on and, make it fun.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea is to figure out ways to make it fun for you while you do it. I'm seeing in the chat box that some people say they're going to start in the kitchen, starting with a winter closet, their desk because they use it every day. Yeah, and things that are just an eyesore to you every time you come in and see it, right? That's irritating. Start doing that. Make your life less stressful. You'll be in a much better mood. Someone says spare bedroom because their son has trouble with climbing stairs and needs a downstairs bedroom and having designated space for grandchildren to spend the night. Yep. Oh, somebody's already going to set a deadline for themselves, a completion date.
Ooh, that's awesome. Yeah, set a date that you want to have this either the day you're working on it, the day you want to have it done by. Love that.
I know we talked about spare bedrooms and garages, and I see someone's mentioning their basement. That's another area that we tend to like be indecisive about and just put it in there. I'll deal with it later. Put it in there. I'll deal with it later. And it piles up. If any of you have barns, I know that can also be an interesting place to store things that you don't want to make a decision about that eventually forces you because it gets so crowded. Yes.
Ooh, their kitchen. Thanksgiving is coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good one. Clear out unused electronics. You know, things have changed so much with technology that this is a perfect time when you're decluttering. You know, if you don't have, like for us, we don't have a landline at home. So why we're keeping our telephones, I don't know. So that is one thing that probably when I go home tonight, I could put that in a Goodwill box and send that off. I don't need that. Oh, that's another great suggestion, sharing items with church. So your local churches, sometimes they accept items as well. And Goodwill was also listed. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing. We are almost to the close of today's program. So one last item we have for you all is we hope that you have a moment to take our survey about today's program. So I am going to include that in the chat box right this moment. And this is a voluntary survey, so you're not required to do this by any means, but we really appreciate your time if you have a moment to take that survey. I will also send out the link in an email following up today's presentation with a link to the recording in case you want to watch this again. And then we'll be meeting again next week. So we hope you all are available to join us. And I believe next week we're talking about decluttering your paper. So one area I myself need to work on. If you have any remaining questions, Sonia and I will be on the call for a little bit longer to answer those, but thank you so much for, joining us today, and our contact information is on the screen.